Hello and welcome to part 2 of this tutorial 186 video. If you've not seen the first part, it might be worth watching that first, but this part of the video we're going to be looking at a function that uses legacy drawing objects to draw the high and the low of an inside or outside bar pattern until that pattern is broken. So just to remind you, for example, we have a pattern here, an inside bar, and we draw a line at the high of the pattern and the low of the pattern, and when the pattern is broken we stop drawing the pattern. We also stop drawing it if there's another inside bar or outside bar that occurs during the pattern. The reason I did this as a function is because potentially the inputs include the price H, price L, and whether we want to look for inside bars or outside bars. This could be used, for example, with a price series provider going into the input, as well as using the price high or price low. Yeah, and also, if you saw the previous video of tutorial 186, you may have noticed, in fact, let's just look at that program for a moment, that we do a lot of code for the inside bar, and then we do almost the same code for outside bar, which is wasteful and not really necessary. Probably easier to understand. But so what I've done in this function is to consolidate the code and just made it so that we change the calculation of the inside or outside bar depending on the IB input. So IB, if we set that to true, it's an inside bar. If we set it to false, it's going to be an outside bar. So let's just run through the code. And the first thing we're determining, is it an inside or outside bar? So I say if IB, that's the input, then the OS bar is going to be the result of this calculation, which is an inside. Otherwise, it's going to be the result of this calculation. And then we go forward and we say if an inside or outside bar has occurred, depending on our user input, then if the user input was IB, was true, then we're going to process this for an inside bar. Otherwise, we're going to process it for outside bar. And the main difference being that we either use the price high 1 bar ago, or we just use the price high. And then in this example, what we do is we're going to be drawing, let me just go to the chart. We're going to be drawing several lines, several trend lines. The first one we're going to draw is this one, just to indicate where the pattern is. Let's have a look at that one. And we do that here. We just create a TL underscore new between date 1 bar ago, time 1 bar ago, date and time. And then we're just putting in there the average of the high and the low 1 bar ago. We also set the size, and then we set a couple of values to be -1. Value 2 is equal to -1, and value 3 is equal to -1, and we'll be using that in a moment. And similarly, we would do if IB is not equal to true, then we need a outside bar, and then we would just change what we draw here. Now, the next thing, we set this variable stop OSH and stop OSL we set them both to false. Having done that, we now need to draw the high line and the low line. So we say if this stop value is false, and if value 2 is -1, then we're going to draw a line. The reason that I'm using this -1, etc., is because we don't want to keep on redrawing the line. What we want to do is draw the line once and then just extend the end of the line. So I've said if value 1 is equal to -1, which means we haven't drawn it before, at least for this inside-outside bar pattern, then we draw it for the first time. And we already know that the high is stored in OS current high, and so we would draw the TL new between the date 1 bar ago, date and time 1 bar ago, and the current date and time for this value OS current high. We also set the color and the size. So that would be this line here, only it wouldn't initially be extended, it would be a little short line. We do similarly for the bottom line, but you'll notice here that we're saying if -1, if value 2 is equal to -1, then we're drawing the line for the first time. If it's not -1, in other words, we've already got a value in value 2 that's not -1, then we're going to extend the line. So we just say if TL exists, just to make sure there is a line in it, then we just set the end to whatever the date and time is at the moment, and that would keep on extending the line. The same for the red line, only then we're looking for the price to breach that level. So if high goes above that level and stop is equal to false, then we change the stop to be true. And because this only continues to draw the line when stop is equal to false, then effectively the line stops, whether that's the red line or the green line. And then when we find a new pattern, the process starts all over again. We would draw the initial trend lines, those little blue ones or blue ones, and then we would go forward and create the high and the low lines. Now, in terms of how to call this function, I've written a little additional indicator here, and just calling it using this syntax. So the name of the function, and then we put in brackets the high, the low, and true if we want the inside bar. If we wanted the outside bar analyzed, we'd put in false there. And if you happen to want both the inside and the outside on the same chart, then you would just call the function twice with two different values in that third value. Now, as far as the values for the chart in terms of let's just have a look at the calling indicator. In this case, I've got it set to update value intrabar. Okay, so hopefully that is useful. There's one more video in this series, and that is looking at doing exactly the same thing, but using drawing objects. Oh, and incidentally, with this program, I have not put in any mechanism to limit the number of drawing objects. So conceivably, if you had a chart with a lot of data, you might start getting error message or warning messages about the number of drawing objects. And of course, if you took it to extremes, it might impact the functioning of the program on the computer. Anyway, hopefully that's useful. If you're not already, please join the Markplex mailing list, Markplex, and of course subscribe to this video channel. Thank you.